Thanks for stopping by to view this Prezi on note-taking. This Prezi will cover different methods of note-taking that you can incorporate before the lecture, during the lecture, and after the lecture. This Prezi will also provide helpful note-taking strategies, including when it may be appropriate to use a laptop in class. Great note-taking takes practice. You have to find methods that work for you, and that may change depending on the classes you are in. We will explore two common methods of note-taking that have different strengths. The first is the Cornell Method, which can be used to write notes before, during, and after lectures. On a sheet of paper or electronic document, create two columns. The column on the left should be about a quarter of the page, and the column on the right should be about 3/4 of the page. Leave the narrow column on the left blank, and use the wide column on the right to organize your notes in point form. Try to paraphrase the author's words while using as few words as possible. Also, you can use bullets and indent information to show relationships between ideas. If you take notes before a lecture using the Cornell Method, you may want to leave spaces where you can fill in the main ideas from the lecture. Another option is to create one set of notes for assigned readings and another for the lecture, and then combine the two sets of notes after the lecture. Regardless, it is a good idea to create a fresh set of notes after the lecture, because some of your points may be duplicated or unorganized. After the lecture, write keywords, phrases, and questions in the narrow column on the left-hand side of the page. Cover up the right-hand column and use the keywords, phrases, and questions to test yourself on the material. Track any answers you consistently get wrong. You will need to focus more on these, especially before an exam. Use the bottom margin of each page of notes to write a summary. This is an example of what notes can look like using the Cornell Method. According to a World Health Organization statistic, healthcare services available for women increased 15% between 1995 and 2005. You will notice that I have written as few words as possible and used abbreviations and symbols when appropriate. When I cover up the right-hand margin, I will be able to use the keywords from the left-hand side to test myself on the material. The second method of note-taking is mind mapping, which shows you the relationships between concepts and ideas. Many people like mind mapping because it allows them to keep a visual record during the lecture. However, some lecturers move too quickly to make an effective mind map during class. If this is the case, after the lecture, try creating a mind map from your Cornell notes as an effective way of recoding the information you recorded. To take effective notes, you must prepare for the lecture, listen and take notes actively during the lecture, and then follow up with review after the lecture. Before the lecture, you should complete all assigned readings. If you stumble upon unfamiliar terms and concepts in the readings, make sure you look them up. Take note of the portions of the readings that are unclear, and during the lecture, listen for the answers. Before class starts, take a few minutes to anticipate what the lecture will be about by reading the syllabus and reviewing your notes from the last lecture. Arrive to class on time and stay until the end. Important information often comes at the very end, such as a summary of the main points. In class, it is important that you select a seat that allows you to see and hear clearly. Write the name of the course, the date, and the subject of the lecture at the top of your notes. Listen to your professor for repetition of key phrases and terms, as well as verbal cues such as, "This is important." Develop a set of abbreviations for recurring terms. For example, the word definition could become the abbreviation DEF in your notes. Nonverbal information, such as the instructor's facial expression, can indicate that a topic is important. The amount of time a professor spends on a topic can also indicate importance. Keep in mind, you should copy down the relevant points that your instructor writes on the board. The key to taking notes during a lecture is to pay special attention to the in-depth explanations that are not on the presentation slides. The parts you cannot access later are usually very valuable. Do not write down everything you read or hear. Write down main ideas rather than complete sentences. If you are confused about a specific point, ask your professor for an example. After class, review and edit your notes as soon as possible while the ideas are still fresh in your mind. Try to review your notes frequently because you forget about 50% of the information you hear within 24 hours. If you had difficulty understanding the content of the lecture, you can see your instructor during office hours to fill the gaps in your notes. You may have noticed a person or two using their laptops to take notes. It can be beneficial to use a laptop because digital notes can be easily sent by email. Plus, printed notes are usually easier to read than handwritten notes. On the flip side, laptops can be tempting sources for distraction, difficult to use in some classrooms, and inadequate for certain drawing and problem-solving tasks. If you use a laptop, be sure to back up your work using online tools such as Google Drive or Evernote. Choose which method of note-taking will work best for you. Remember, your methods may vary depending on the course.